Dito kami sa boat.
As we take off here and
Dito sa The Forks.
we will go to the safety features of this vessel. Starting with life jackets. There are life jackets for everybody on board. They're right above your heads. In case of an emergency, I will instruct you to put one on. You simply pull it down from the ceiling, slide it over your head, tie the waistband around your waist, and you're good to go.
Okay.
In case anybody falls over, they have a rescue buoy up front, and we can toss it to them and retrieve them with the rope. In case the mechanical failure of the watercraft, we do have a large anchor on board as well to mobilize the boat so you don't drift into anything nasty. And we are equipped with 2 radios. One's on my hip and one's at the helm station, so we can call for help. Or alternatively, we can pull out our cell phones and call for help because we're still in the city, or we can shout to someone on the riverbank and ask for help. In case of injury, we are equipped with a first aid kit. It's right in the boat box right in front of me. And we do have fire extinguishers on board as well in case of fire. Now, I will ask that as we're underway, going full speed, that you remain seated in your seats. However, if I'm slowed down or stopped, you're welcome to use the observation deck to take pictures. Any questions?
None.
Are we all from Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This
Where are you
is
guys from? Whereabouts in Ontario? Okay, cool. Edmonton?
Oh. No, sabi 6:35 aboard.
Awesome. Well, welcome. We're going to start our journey tonight on the Assiniboine River.
Wow.
The Assiniboine starts in the neighboring province of Saskatchewan, meanders its way through southern Manitoba, and eventually dumps its waters right behind us in the Red River. This is why we call this place the Forks, because it is a fork between 2 major rivers. Traditionally, this was the main gateway into the Canadian prairies. Before roads and before the railroads, the voyageurs and the First Nations people paddled this river to get into the Canadian prairies.
Ito na yung ano natin, cruise. Sample ng ano namin, ng cruise as a group. Sample ng cruise. Practice lang, practice. Saya.
Sarap ng hangin, alamig.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. Good. Ayun o, may mga nagsuscooter. Saya. Ako, carry na. Kaya nga. Yung hotel ni na Brenda kasi supposedly dapat dito sa may Fort Garry, kaya lang kinancel na nila. Dito banda. Saya, lamig. Maraming watch cards. Okay, no? Okay ba cruise? Malamig. So, valid this is a 35-minute boat ride.
River are painted with these 3 lines on the column. Any guess as to what that is?
Oh. Assiniboine River.
Different flood levels. Typically, when the spring thaw happens and all the snow and ice melts, the river will rise to that blue line. Not a cause for concern, completely normal, and didn't even happen this year because we didn't have enough snow.
Yeah.
If it rises to that yellow line, that can represent mild flooding. Not an issue here in the city of Winnipeg, but can be an issue for rural municipalities.
Yan,
outside
pag
of
yellow
Winnipeg.
line daw, mild
Rises to
flooding.
that red line, all hands on deck.
Yeah.
We're getting ready for a flood here in Winnipeg, so we're deploying our flood mitigation measures.
Mm-hmm.
We've had historically 2 really bad floods in Winnipeg. One was in 1950, it actually destroyed a third of the city, caused over $2 billion in damage. And then we had the really bad flood in 1997, the worst flood in 100 years, dubbed the flood of the century. However, a critical piece of infrastructure made the major difference in 1997. It was built in the 1960s as a result of the flood of 1950. And essentially what it is, it's a diversion canal called the Red River Floodway. So now whenever the water rises to that red line, we simply divert the waters of the Red River around the city of Winnipeg to the east to dump the excess water to the north. It saved our bacon in 1997, but just barely. So in the year 2000, the province went ahead and made it wider and deeper, and now it can take a 1 in 400 year flood event. So we're very well protected now within the city limits.
Saya! Huh? Yeah. Kasama natin lovebirds. Mga lovebirds. Ang sweet. Oh.
Welcome to the Manitoba Legislature. This is the seat of our provincial government here in Manitoba. And it is unique compared to other legislatures across the country and the rest
Manitoba
of the world.
legislation.
Specific reason. Reason number one, the shape of its assembly hall. Most legislatures in Canada are parliamentary style, 2 rows of seating facing each other. And most legislatures in the US are like the US House of Congress, a half circle. This one is U-shaped or horseshoe shaped, the only one like it in North America. The building itself is quite unique. During its construction in 1913 and 1920, the chief architect, the general contractor, and the premier at the time were all members of the Freemasons. They embedded all sorts of Freemason symbols within the design of the building. I could spend all night talking about the different symbols throughout the building, but I'm just going to highlight the most obvious one, which is the Golden Boy, the statue on the top of the legislature. It's a representation of the Greek god Hermes, since Freemasonry bores a lot of Greek mythology in its symbology. The statue itself was a gift from France, and as it was making its way over here to North America from Europe, the ship that it was on was commandeered by the British Navy in the middle of the First World War, after all. So it spent the duration of the war tucked away in the cargo hold as the ship was being used to resupply troops in Europe. And at the end of the war, it was finally unloaded in Montreal, put on a train, shipped to Winnipeg, and erected on the legislature. It is 17 feet tall. It's gilded in 24-karat gold, but it's primarily made out of bronze. It's all bling on the outside, and it's not worth very much on the inside.
Oh.
The legislature building itself is made out of Manitoba Tyndall stone, which is a type of limestone that was all quarried north of the city in the community of Stonewall. And at the forefront of the legislature, welcoming us to the legislative grounds from the riverbank, is a statue of our founder, Monsieur Louis Riel. Now, Manitoba is quite distinct in Canadian history as being the only province in Canada that was started as a result of a rebellion, the Red River Rebellion of 1870, led by Monsieur Riel. At the time, all the territory around us was owned by the Hudson's Bay Trading Company, and they sold it to the government of Canada. One problem, nobody consulted with the Red River Métis that inhabited this area, nor the First Nations people that inhabited the territory that is now Manitoba, on whether or not they consented to join Canada. So Louis decided to do something about it. He took advantage of an opportune moment in time. As the Hudson's Bay Company was emptying its forts of garrisons and soldiers, Louis and his band of Métis warriors took advantage of the power vacuum and took over the most important administrative and military post, the Upper Fort Garry, of which the last remaining gate still exists today at the corners of Broadway and Main Street. He marched in there, declared a provisional government, and the Canadian government was completely caught by surprise by this action, completely unprepared. They were unable to respond militarily in time. So they were forced to the negotiating table. And out of that negotiation came the Manitoba Act of 1870, incorporating Manitoba as the 5th Canadian province.
Oh.
In the Manitoba Act of 1870, two major concessions were made for the Métis peoples of the Red River Valley. One was ensuring their linguistic rights, ensuring that they could be educated and serviced in the language of choice, which at the time for most Métis people was either French or Michif, which is a mix of French and 3 languages. The second concession was their confessional rights, the rights to practice their religion freely, which for most Métis people at the time was Roman Catholicism. This actually marks the first time in Canada's history that human rights were incorporated in a constitutional document, and it predates our own Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada by over 100 years. So it's pretty monumental stuff at the time. Louis was elected our first member of parliament for this region. However, he never got to take a seat at the House of Commons in Ottawa. As an act of retaliation against him, the government of Sir John Macdonald had been charged with the murder of a prisoner that was executed under his authority during the provisional government period. And as a result of that, he went to self-imposed exile in Montana until 1885. We'll learn about his return to Canada in 1885 when we get into the Red River. And that's where we're headed to next.
Yan, papunta na ng Red River. So, dito na part yung Assiniboine. Masarap mag-bike. Yung mahaba na yan, spread. Pwede mag-bike. Hanggang sa dulo. Yeah, ito. Okay din pala tong experience na to. First time lang namin sumakay dito sa boat dito. Bale, ano siya, $20 for adults. Tapos may special rate for seniors and sa mga children. Nakina, kinit doon, di ba? Ayun kahangin.
Concludes our tour. No, just kidding, we're only halfway through. I have to slow down as I make our way through the forks and prevent what that gentleman just did was to create a wave to have all the boats shake around because it is considered a harbor. But it gives me an excuse to talk about the forks a little bit. As Winnipeggers know, this is our primary meeting place here in Winnipeg. It's where we celebrate a lot of our celebrations. It's where friends and family gather to spend time together. And it's where most tourists come and start their journeys into Manitoba. But for thousands and thousands of years, this was an important meeting place for the First Nations people. We are on the traditional territories of the Cree, Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Lakota, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and they would have met here to trade for many, many millennia. In the late 80s and early 90s, as they were redeveloping the forks, turning it into what we see today, they did all sorts of archaeological studies and digs, and they found artifacts suggesting that not only were First Nations people from the immediate area gathering here to trade, but likely First Nations people from all over North America. They found seashells from as far as the Gulf Coast of Mexico and the Pacific Coast. In the early 20th century, the Forks was the main marshalling yard for the Canadian National Railway. All the brick buildings you see at the Forks are old railway shops and were bookended by 2 railway bridges. The one we just went under is still very active. As you can hear, it's the main line for the Canadian National to Toronto and Vancouver. And then the one that's in front of us has been inactive for quite a while and been turned into a pedestrian bridge to access the Forks from Norwood. However, it is closed to pedestrian traffic right now because they're doing some major renovations up on that steel structure up there. They're taking down the old concrete cistern that used to be housed in that that steel structure. Originally, it was designed to hold water. They would pump water from the river into that concrete cistern, and they would allow for enough counterweight, opening the middle section of the bridge open to allow large ships to come through. They opened it once in 1910 upon its completion to test it out, make sure everything worked, and they never opened it again. No large boats ever came into the Assiniboine. It's just too shallow for larger ships. Now we're headed into the Red River, which does accommodate larger ships. The Red River is one of the few major rivers in North America that actually flows north. Its headwaters are located in the states of Minnesota and North Dakota, and are only 20 kilometers away from the headwaters of the Mississippi, which flows south to the Gulf of Mexico. So you could take the video here at the Forks and paddle all the way up to the beginning of the Red River, portage over into the headwaters of the Mississippi River, and then paddle your way down the Mississippi until you reach New Orleans, and likely make it there just in time for Mardi Gras next year.
Mardi Gras.
Alternatively, you could follow the flow of the water going north into Lake Winnipeg, where the river ends, explore the many beautiful beaches of the south basin of Lake Winnipeg. You journey through Narrows and Madel Island onto the north basin of Lake Winnipeg, and then eventually you get find your way to the mouth of either the Eighth River, the Churchill River, or the Nesson River, where you can follow either of those rivers down to Tidewater and the Hudson Bay. Once you cross the Hudson Bay,
And we are now heading to Red River.
This is both right left to the Arctic Ocean. You take that go to the fifth maritime from Canada. And I don't think people are making that journey like you anytime soon.
Wow! Jet ski sila, oh. Tulog. Nainitan si Balls. Enjoy! Ayun yung umiilaw-ilaw sa gabi.
Yeah.
Ngayon lang namin makikita.
Siguro maganda sa gabi.
Oo, yung lights. Yung pinakita ko sa'yo ng mga video, drone shots. Umiilaw yan.
Yeah. Okay, sa gabi.
Yeah. Yan yung museum.
That's a wonderful vantage point of the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. It's the only museum dedicated to human rights in the world. It's the only national museum in Canada located outside of our nation's capital region of Ottawa. No. Where else we have the Provencher Bridge. This is the third iteration of a bridge at this location. Geographers have always considered the Red River dividing eastern and western Canada, making the first bridge crossing an important step towards the nation-building project of Canada. It was built in 1840 and actually connected Broadway, where the legislature is, directly to Provencher Boulevard, the main street of the old city of St. Boniface. In 1910, with the construction of the Canadian National Rail Yard and the Union Railway Station, it severed that connection between Broadway and Provencher. So they had to build a new bridge to redirect traffic towards Portage Avenue. That second bridge was engineered by the same engineering firm that did the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Third bridge we see in front of us today was designed by a famous architect from Winnipeg named Buhay, and he designed it with a restaurant in the middle. However, after 3 attempts of having a restaurant on the bridge, it is no longer a restaurant. It is now the Manitoba Technology Accelerator. It's a place for tech entrepreneurs to find resources to help their businesses grow and thrive. The difficulty of running a restaurant in the middle of a bridge is quite simple. It's minus 20, minus 30, or God forbid, minus 40 outside. Not many people are willing to park the car at the forks
And walk.
Comanche Boulevard and walk to their reservation in the middle of the bridge. Ladies, you're not wearing high heels on that date, that's for sure. The other difficulty is you gotta bring water and sewer services to the bridge for it to function as a restaurant. And as Winnipeggers dubbed it, $2 million toilet, it cost that much to fund the bridge, was not an easy feat. In the wintertime, the pipes are actually installed in a cavity space within the bridge's delta span, and in the winter, to prevent freezing of those pipes, that cavity space has to be heated. Now, one restaurateur told me he was spending over $2,000 a month simply to heat that cavity space.
$2,000 a month.
Very few customers, high heating bills, you're not making much money running a restaurant in the middle of a bridge in Winnipeg. And we start to see it here over here.
Manitoba Technology Accelerator na siya ngayon.
Enjoy ba? Sarap ng hangin talaga. Nakakatuwa.
Sabing containers.
Container, oh. Yun. Dulo pala yan, lab eh.
Oo?
Yeah.
Hindi. Electric ka ba? Oo, no?
Yung under, Maandar yata.
Welcome to Winnipeg, the fourth exchange district. This area really represents how Winnipeg at one time in its history was the major distribution point for all manufactured goods coming into Western Canada. Prior to the arrival of the railway in 1881, most manufactured products made their way into Winnipeg via the Red River. They would get loaded onto boats in Fargo, North Dakota, and then brought right up to the river here, where they would get loaded on docks that dotted the entire shoreline. Those goods would then get stored in the warehouses of the Exchange District to be bought by local merchants from all over the prairie provinces. My own grandmother had a clothing store, and she would come buy her clothes wholesale here in the Exchange District. With the arrival of the railways, both major railways, the Canadian National and the Canadian Pacific, had rail spurs along the riverbank here on where modern-day Waterfront Drive is, and they would also unload those manufactured goods from Toronto, Montreal, and Chicago. In exchange, natural resources would make their way here from the shores of Lake Winnipeg. Stuff like dried fish, timber, and precious metals would get collected by large steamships along the shores of Lake Winnipeg and then be ferried right up the river here to be unloaded on the same docks that were originally built for the steamers from Fargo. Those goods then would make their way into the empty train cars and be shipped back out east, be made into more products that could be shipped out west. The last of these trade docks is in front of us is the Alexander docks right over there. Unfortunately, they were closed down in 2008 due to structural concerns, but the Forks does have a mandate to redevelop the docks into another waterfront attraction for Winnipeggers and visitors to enjoy. So hopefully in the next few years, we'll see something happen there. The Exchange District today is our arts and entertainment district. It's home to the Manitoba Theatre Center, Centennial Concert Hall, and the Plantation Playhouse. The place hosts 2 major festivals every year: the Winnipeg Jazz Festival, which happens at the end of June, and right now, it's happening right now, the Winnipeg International British Theatre Festival, which is the largest British theatre festival in North America. Many of the buildings in the Exchange District are redeveloped into high-end apartments, condos, boutique hotels, artist studios, offices, this wonderful restaurants, bars, microbrewery, and microbrewery. It's a wonderful place to come, visit the evening, drink food, drinks, and so that you can.
Cute.
Last stop on our evening tour is the historic community of Saint-Boniface, which is the largest French-speaking community outside the province of Quebec in Canada. In front of us, we have the St. Boniface Cathedral. It was originally built in 1908. It was the largest Roman Catholic cathedral outside the city of Montreal. Unfortunately, on July 22nd, 1968, it burnt down due to a careless accident that was caused by a worker. They were doing roof renovations, and one of the employees threw his cigarette butt when he was on break, and it landed in a bucket of tar and lit the whole roof on fire. As a consequence, the cathedral burned down, and they say the fire was so intense
St. Boniface.
that the rosette, the stained glass window in that
Cathedral.
circle, exploded and sent shards of glass flying to the opposite bank of the river. If you look through the circle, though, you can see the modern cathedral that was built in the ruins of the old cathedral. That was also designed by the same architect that did the bridge, Etienne Gabory. Did a wonderful job of incorporating modernist architecture in a neoclassical ruin. Saint-Boniface is also the birthplace of Monsieur Louis Riel. He grew up not far from here at the confluence of the Seine and Red Rivers. His grandfather was given a 1,000-acre land concession by Lord Selkirk, the first British colonist, and his mother was the first woman of European descent to have settled here in the prairies. His parents actually opened and operated the first flour mill in Manitoba. In 1885, Louis came back to Canada, this time to lead another rebellion in the neighboring province of Saskatchewan and on behalf of the Métis Cree Nation of that province, and it was dubbed the Northwest Rebellion. However, it was not as successful as the Red River Rebellion, because by that point the railways had made their way to the Canadian West, so the government of Canada, instead of negotiating, simply sent in the troops, and those troops were accompanied by a mercenary from the U.S. who's equipped with the world's first submachine gun, the Gatling gun. So at the final battle of Batush, they took up their secret weapon, the Gatling gun. They mowed down the Métis warriors. They captured Louis. They put him on trial in Regina for treason. He was found guilty of treason by a jury of not his peers, and then he was sentenced to death by hanging. Thankfully, they had the dignity to return his body home here to St. Boniface, and he was buried in front of the cathedral. You visit his tomb to this day. Yes? I'm getting right there. That's my final thing. We'll start with that little white building with the green shutters over there. Can you guys see that behind the trees? It's a little tough to see.
Yeah.
That is Winnipeg's oldest standing structure. It is Western Canada's oldest and largest log building that is still standing. And it is Manitoba's first hospital. It was built in 1840 for the Grey Nuns, which is a religious order from Montreal, whose work primarily focused on healthcare. Today, it is the St. Boniface Museum. They have the largest collection of Métis artifacts in North America, including the rope, the noose that hung Louis. It's closed for 2 years right now for major renovations. Many of their more important artifacts are on temporary display at the St. Boniface City Hall. And if we turn our attention to the front of the boat, that large, multifaceted building with different wings is Manitoba's second largest hospital, St. Boniface Hospital. And it is also Manitoba's only independent hospital. It is still owned and operated by the Grey Nuns.
Yun pala ang
Where I
St.
was born,
Boniface.
where my mom was born, where my grandfather was born. I'm fourth generation French Canadian from St. Boniface, and I'm proud of it. And I want to invite you all to something we do every Thursday night in the summer to celebrate the Franco-Manitoban culture. It's called Franco Thursdays. It starts at 6 p.m. at the foot of the bridge. You may have noticed the tents set up there for the night market. There is activities all over St. Boniface, especially at the Franco-Manitoban Cultural Center at the end of Provencher. And so you are all welcome, vous êtes tous la bienvenue to come join us for a little bit of joie de vivre in St. Boniface.
St. Boniface. Masarap na umupo dyan, no? Mag-relax-relax. Oh my God, ang ganda, no?
Our corner of Winnipeg from the Red and Assiniboine rivers. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening on Winnipeg Waterways. My name is Pascal. As we approach the docks here at the Forks, I have two things I'm asking you guys. One is mandatory and one is voluntary. Mandatory, please remain seated in the boat until the boat is fully secured to the dock before disembarking. This ensures nobody falls between the boat and the dock. And voluntary, if you enjoyed your tour, if you learned something new, please tip your guide and captain. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yan na, magda-dock na. Hey!
Around, good. Figure eight.
Tapos na ang ating
Under your last figure eight.
tour.
Yeah, that's awesome. Perfect.
Ito.
All right, guys, you are welcome to disembark. Thank you very much for joining me. Good evening.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Nakakatawa. Ano. Ganda. Ganda nito, oh. Ayan, oh. Sarap igala. Very nice.
Isang human rights museum. O, di ba?
Correct.
Sa buong Pilipinas. Sa buong ano, sa buong mundo.
Buong mundo.
Yeah.
O, diba? Tapos na kami. Boat tour. Boat tour. So, papasok lang kami dito sa loob ulit ng The Forks Market.
Natulog ka, history yun. Di ba?
Natulog.
Actually, ang natulog. Ayaw ko ng history.
Ayoko rin, ng history. Ayoko din.
Matindi yung ano, pintor. Nagyosi. Nagyosi. Yun.
Yung sinulog niya yung
Yeah.
Simbahan.
Saan simbahan?
ikaw na lang ang katedral. Pabilig sana, tapos sa labas.
Enjoy! Ang ganda ng mga flowers.
Bibili tayo pagkain tapos kami nakain sa labas.
Pwede. Kayo, sa labas or loob?
Yun na lang sa loob kasi pinagpapawisan niyo.
Sobrang daming tao ngayon. So, eto, ma-prefer is fish and chips. Yan. Hey. Yan, waiting for our orders. Ang daming nakapila.
Thanks for watching! Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content. We hope you enjoy this video. See you in the next one!